as Mayash reports.
For millions now, it's no longer a choice. More of us are renting privately. The number is up 2/3 in a decade, driven by high property prices. But what happens when it goes wrong?
Everything was gone.
We've seen figures showing reports of illegal evictions are rising.
It's just not something you simply imagine going on much in 2018.
And the authorities are struggling to deal with it. Julius is just starting out in the fashion industry. His first job is at this agency in central London. What was the rent for this place?
693.
Last year, he moved from Manchester to a shared flat here in Tower Hamlets. Do you know how much the other people were paying in there?
I would have started looking in.
At some point, he was charged extra fees for late payment of his rent. He says he was in talks to pay this back. Then he says he came home at night to find the key to his bedroom door didn't work. When a locksmith let him in, he says his room was empty. So you came home, could you fit your key in the door?
I got in, rushed to my room, they changed the lock, and I was like, oh, everything was gone. And I took a video, I took pictures as well, and then I was just in my room like, whoa, like, everything is gone.
What was in your stuff? What did you have that they took?
My clothes, my shoes, towels. They took my shaving machines. They literally took everything. They even took my bed sheets.
This is the agency that sold him that room, Flinton's in East London. The firm told us it strongly disputes that Julius was locked out of his room or his possessions removed. It says he told them in a phone call 2 days before that he had already moved out, and it appeared his room had been abandoned. That is denied by Julius, who says he still hasn't got his belongings back.
I think about it every day, and I'm just thinking, why? Like, why did this happen to me? Like, what have I done? I haven't done anything. I'm here, like, trying to work, mind my business. It's not easy. It's like someone taking so much from you and kicking you out when you've done nothing.
So what does the law say about eviction? Well, actually, there is quite a lot of protection already in place. It can be illegal if your landlord forces you to leave by threatening you, or stops you from getting into parts of your home, or the locks are changed while you're out. The key clause here is due process, which means the correct steps have to be followed.
The Protection from Eviction Act protects all residential occupiers from harassment and illegal eviction. Most people in the country need to be evicted by a court order. And the bottom line is, if a landlord doesn't go to court and get a possession order from the court, then that will be an illegal eviction.
So if I was late on my rent, or if I was being a bit of a frustration for the landlord, they still couldn't chuck me out without due process. They would have to go through...
If you owed £100,000, the process is they've still got to go to court. But they can't just change the locks on you.
This programme has seen figures showing more than 2,000 people contacted Citizens Advice to report an illegal eviction last year, a 5-year high across England and Wales. But the evidence threshold for prosecution is high, and penalties are rare. Only 47 complaints led to a prosecution. There were 18 convictions. In the most serious cases, 2 people went to jail. The BBC is not aware of any criminal investigation into Flinton's relating to allegations of illegal eviction.
I was there for only 3 months. I could walk into the city, I could take the DLR.
Sam is another customer of Flinton's, the same rental agency featured earlier.
Get someone else in.
He also happens to be a commercial property lawyer in the City of London. He took a room in this flat last year on a short-term lease. Once again, he says he was locked out and his belongings taken away.
It was only when I tried to put my key in the lock that I discovered, hang on, there's something amiss here, and realised what had happened.
At the time, Sam's rental contract had just come to an end. He says he was still in dispute with Flinton's after they failed to fix problems with the flat, and had emailed them to say he wasn't planning to move out yet.
I am totally convinced that they engage in unlawful practices. Obviously it's the wrong thing to do morally, but legally it's a very serious thing what they've done, and how can they carry on like this? It's just not something you simply imagine going on much in 2018.
Sam is now suing Flintons for damages linked to what he says is an unlawful eviction. The agency denies his allegations and says it will defend the case. It says it would not be proper to discuss it in more detail while legal proceedings are ongoing. People working in the housing sector say the true scale of the problem is very hard to measure. Many tenants will just rent a new place without going to the authorities. That's especially true when we're talking about people who've just come to this country, who might not understand the system or know where to get help.
House visit, £30.
Stan and his girlfriend Georgina arrived in London from Romania last year. Both worked nights packing sandwiches in a warehouse in the East End. Again, they took a room with the same agency, Flintons.
And I have even one video with the room. I come home and I don't find nothing.
Stan accepts he missed some rent payments, but says there was no warning letter or phone call from the agency. Instead, he says he came home, his door was wide open, and all his belongings had just vanished. So you just came in and this is what?
What I found? Nothing. Even garbage they take. Everything.
Stan says he complained to Flintons and ended up paying £450 to get his stuff back, in bin bags, in the street. The agency produced a receipt saying that payment was for leaving his contract early, though he disputes that.
In bags, black bags in the street.
10 months later, the Property Ombudsman awarded them £400 in compensation for breaching its code of practice, though it said it could not rule on the legality of the eviction itself.
She had lobbied to become a proper regulator.
His caseworker at Citizens Advice says there is little more that can be done.
Well, Stan could go to court, but that costs time and that costs money as well. I just don't think that's feasible for many people.
So in this case, the Property Ombudsman accepted that Flintons
Had behaved wrongly, yeah?
they had behaved wrongly.
Yes, and criticised them for their behaviour. But it seems to me that it's not enough.
Flintons told us it again denies the allegations in this case. It says Stan and Georgina left the property of their own free will, and says the Ombudsman's ruling came after it failed to submit paperwork because of an administrative oversight. Stan and Georgina say the whole experience left them hundreds of pounds out of pocket.
I was, oh my God, what happened here? And Georgina, my girlfriend, started to cry.
I'm shocked. I'm scared.
People working in the sector say change is needed, both to better regulate letting agencies and to provide better access to help and support when something does go wrong.
As far as I can see, there's more consumer protection for someone who buys a bathroom plug than from someone who rents a property from a letting agent. There is no regulator to manage the behaviour of disreputable letting agents and say, don't behave like that.
Stricter regulation is something politicians have been promising for a while in England and Northern Ireland. In Wales and Scotland, new rules are already in place. By 2025, it's thought a quarter of us could be renting privately. The worry is that without better protection, thousands more could be shut out of the housing market.